Hi everyone, welcome to today's session, Teaching Arts Online. I am Michelle Pacansky-Brock, and I am going to just give a quick hello and introduce myself to all of you. I have been teaching online for a long time, started teaching online in around 2002 or 2003. And started using VoiceThread to teach online in 2007. I was teaching full-time at that time. And then about 10 years ago, I moved from teaching full-time to supporting faculty full-time. And now I teach part-time, on and off again. And I use VoiceThread still. So my discipline, my teaching discipline is art history. And I'm currently teaching the history of photography at Mount San Jacinto College. And I'll be sharing some examples of my class from that. And I just want to say that I feel you. Teaching online is hard work. And I think Hilary and I are both probably going to echo some of the same thoughts here, but we've been doing this for a long time. And so a lot of what you're going to see today is going to assume a lot of skills that maybe you haven't gotten your arms around yet. So we just want to, it's so overwhelming right now. There's so much to take in. If there's one thing if you can just take one thing away from today's session, if it's an idea about something that you want to make happen in the future, or maybe improving an existing practice that you have, whatever it might be, that will be a success. So that's me. And oh, I forgot to say, I also, in my full-time role today, I am a faculty mentor for CVC, OEI, and @ONE. We are a statewide initiative in the California Community College system, and I'm on the professional development team. So that's what I do most of my time. Hilary, you want to say hi?
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Hilary Gomes, and I teach at Foothill Community College. I started teaching online through Etudes in 2002, an art appreciation course. And then in 2009, I decided to develop fully online studio art classes, and one of the tools that I was introduced in 2009 was VoiceThread, and I started using that for art critiques, and I taught drawing and heads and hands drawing that first year. And then since then I've been teaching color theory, watercolor, two-dimensional design, and now I'm going to be teaching oil and acrylic in the fall. And like I said, the transition to move my studio classes, which I usually teach on campus, to online was a hard transition for me in 2009, 2010. And I really do feel for everybody. And that's part of the reason why I'm here. And I'm honored to be here with Michelle, is that I'm here to be supportive. I know how it feels. It's not easy, but you know what? When you find tools that do work for you, that seem somewhat similar, it makes it so much easier. And it's actually really kind of enjoyable to teach online. So that's part of the reason why I'm here. So I'm really looking forward to learning more from you guys and sharing what I've learned over the years.
Awesome. Thanks, Hilary. I'm going to go ahead and launch a quick poll here. There are 4 questions in the poll, and you should see it pop up on your window now. If you could please respond to those 4 questions, I'm going to give you some time to do that. It'll give us a sense of who's here today. So I can see on my end about 60% of you have already voted, 70%. 80%. It's starting to slow down now. So I'm going to give 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and end the poll. So we had 83 people respond, and we have 93 in the room, but that includes Hilary and I and Sadie. So describe your experience with VoiceThread. I'm going to share the results, so you should see them now. Describe your experience with VoiceThread. you are using or have used VoiceThread. That's 22%. So most of you are new to VoiceThread. 77% of you have not used it. And let's see, kind of a mixed bag here. Does your institution have a site license for VoiceThread? 46% of you said yes, 20% said no, and 34% said I'm not sure. So if you are employed at a California community college system, I do have a list. We have a list of all the colleges and districts in our system with a site license on our resource site. It's on the homepage of that resource site that is linked in the chat. So click there and you can take a peek there. And if you're not sure, I strongly recommend that you find out. What do you teach? Let's take a look at this. Most of you selected fine arts, 49%, 34% art history, 10% photography, 16% design, 11% other visual art. We have some folks from outside the visual arts and 7 people who are not in a teaching role. So thank you everyone for being here. It's a very diverse group. And is this fall your first time teaching fully online? 52% of you said yes, and 48% of you said no. So now we know that we have some experienced folks and some folks who are stepping into this for the first time. So that's when sharing gets really valuable. So again, use that chat box to share ideas and things that you're doing in your own class. And I'm going to now share my screen and introduce you very briefly to what VoiceThread is, since we now know that many of you are new to VoiceThread. I'm going to take you out into our slides, which are in that resource site. So our goal for this session are to provide an intro to VoiceThread, demonstrate how to design and facilitate an art critique in an asynchronous online format, demonstrate how to use collaborative image curation assignments as catalysts for a Canvas discussion, and consider the benefits of asynchronous online learning for students. I think you'll hear that kind of embedded in our presentations as we go throughout. So what is this thing called VoiceThread that we are referring to? First of all, it's an external tool. It's not a tool that's native to Canvas or any other learning management system if you use another one like Blackboard or Moodle. It's an external tool. It's not currently provided to the California Community College at the state level. I just want to make that clear. I know there are some tools that are, it is not. A site license is really needed for the Canvas integration that Hilary and I will be referring to today. That includes automatic student account creation and gradebook integration. And that also includes the option to have automatic captioning be part of your license. In addition, VoiceThread supports learner variability, universal design for learning, which is a research-based framework for teaching and learning that supports all the various ways that people learn. It's a fascinating framework if you're interested in digging into it, but that's one of the things that got me so excited about VoiceThread early on. It fosters asynchronous interactions. So just to be clear, asynchronous is delayed, right? So you are sitting and listening to us present, and this is a live or a synchronous session. So asynchronous is more like email, where you jump in and you make your contributions at a time that works for you. So that's how VoiceThread works. And those interactions occur around media, images, presentation slides, videos, or audio files, or a mix of all of those in a single VoiceThread. And comments in VoiceThread can be made by the instructor or the students using voice, video, or text. So it gives options to the commenter and how they want to make their contributions. There's a doodle tool in VoiceThread that you'll see being used in the examples, and when someone is leaving a comment, they have the ability to simply annotate on the screen as they speak with their mouse, or if they're in the app, they can actually do it with their finger. And as I just mentioned, it does come along with a free mobile app, which is really great for smartphone-friendly course design. We do have students who rely on phones for their internet access, and it can work just very, very well in the mobile app. VoiceThread also includes an accessible interface that supports the use of screen readers, which is known as VoiceThread Universal, and that's baked into the user experience as well. And the interface is very intuitive. So that's a little bit about what VoiceThread is. I am going to pass things over now to Hilary, who's going to tell you a little bit about our class and show you how she's using VoiceThread.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm going to spend a little time showing you an art critique, and I decided to make a video to explain it for the reasons for the identities of the students. So we blurred out the names of the students in the VoiceThread and also in the Canvas discussion board. So that's part of the reason why I'm doing that. So I'm going to share with you how I use VoiceThread in Canvas, and I'm going to show you the video. If you have any questions while I'm showing the video, feel free to leave them in the chat and I'll be sure to answer those. Can everyone see this, the video? Okay, great. Hello, yes. My name is Hilary Gomes, and I'm a studio art instructor at Foothill College. I teach drawing classes on campus and also online using Canvas. And I wanted to share with you how I hold class art critiques on Canvas using a tool called VoiceThread. For their midterm critique, after they've read and watched videos from week 4 charcoal shading, they learned about the shadow and light terms and also how to use charcoal. So for example, they learned about Obscura, and they learned how light might be coming from the right side, and they learned a little bit about halftone, highlights, and shadows, form shadows, core shadows, and cast shadows. And I do have my students submit their work on a traditional discussion board on Canvas. So in this assignment right here, they are in small groups, and they set up a small still life using basic volumes with a clamp light, and they direct the light towards the objects, and they render the drawing from observation using charcoal and erasers. And then they post, their drawings on the discussion board. And you can see what happens is on the discussion board on Canvas, they usually just say things like, great job, or you did a really nice job. And it's very supportive, but they don't really similar to what would actually happen on campus. So on campus, I usually have the students pin up their drawings on the wall. They stand back and they spend time really analyzing the artwork. They get to hear verbal feedback from myself, and where I stand there and I'll get really close to the drawing and I point out certain areas of it. And students also have the opportunity to jump in and give constructive feedback. And most of the time, students are listening. They're spending a lot of time listening to each other's feedback and taking their time to give feedback. And I find that on campus, verbal feedback seems to be a natural way that art students, it's much different than text-based feedback. So after the students have submitted their work on the discussion board, I usually download the artwork into a folder, and then what I do is I create a critique, VoiceThread critique. I have the instructions, and it says for your midterm you will be participating in a verbal class critique, and I spend some time discussing about what I expect for the students to do. You will be recording your voice and giving yourself a self-critique. Please also give critique feedback to at least 2 other students, and there is no time limit for the verbal post. And it also says to participate, you're going to click this link, and it says here, load midterm VoiceThread drawing critique in a new window. So I'll click that.
Well, hello students. This week we're going to participate in a class critique. A class critique is an opportunity for you to give and receive feedback to your classmates. You will also hear feedback from myself, and also you're going to give yourself self-critique. The word critique sounds a little like criticism, but it really is about constructive feedback. It's a way to describe and say what is working in each person's artwork, what do you think they did well, and how you think a person could do better by giving them tips. When you're giving constructive feedback, you should be kind and thoughtful about what you say in the class. Always refer back to the module and about some of the goals of the assignment. So for example, this week, I asked everybody to set up a basic still life with basic volumes and direct a spotlight towards the objects. I wanted to see that you were able to render these basic volumes with shadows and lights and apply the 3 light terms: halftone, highlight, which is over here, highlight, and reflected light, form shadow, core shadow, and cast shadow, and use the new charcoal techniques you learned from the module. So those are the kinds of things that you want to think about when you're giving the constructive feedback. How well does somebody understand the light and shadow? So how well did the student use charcoal? Okay, well, I look forward to hearing your feedback. And please take your time. This critique will be open for a whole week, so you can come and go and listen to what other people say about your work, and you can give feedback during the week. And I look forward to hearing what you have to say in this class. Your voice matters.
So then, after a student hears the small arrow and turn the page to see different students' work. Okay, so now I'm going to show you, I have a few different critiques on here, which you can see later after the link is over, but I'm going to show you a different critique as part of this video.
One thing I did well on this part is that I really captured the shadowing of the volumes. But one thing I felt like I could have done better is emphasizing the degrading of the lightness, or the degrading of the darkness of on the volumes itself.
Hey Zachary, I think you did a fantastic job. I can see halftone, highlight, cross shadow here, and form shadow, also cast shadow. The cast shadow on your cylinder may be something that you need to improve regarding where your light is angled, because it could be somewhere here in the cylinder, or I could be wrong. However, you did a great job. Hello, this is Hilary Gomes, your teacher, and I wanted to give you some feedback about your drawing of the volumes. 2 things that you did well is you got all of the objects sketched on your page and you made them overlap, which is great. You also placed the background, and that was helpful to create contrast. You also added shadows to each of the objects. The constructive feedback that I can give you to improve your drawing would be to have all shadows on one side of the picture. So most likely if the light source is coming from the left side, the shadows are on the right. So on this cone, you have the shadow on the right, the shadow on the right side of the cylinder. You're starting to have the shadow on the right side of the cube, but on the sphere, you put it on the left side. So I would suggest to move that shadow to the right side. My favorite objects on the page is the cone. I think the other objects need a little bit more time. So some things you can work on is to erase the light on the top of your cylinder here. On each side of your box needs to be a different shadow. So this could be the dark side, this could be the middle gray side, and this could be the light side. The third thing you can do to make corrections would be to remove all your outlines. To do so, all you need to do is to take the dark lines and to blend them into the background. So removing all the lines can be really helpful. Sometimes I place an index card along the side and I blend the shadows down. I smudge all my outlines, or I erase all my outlines as much as possible, and use shading alone to help my drawing to look more realistic.
So you can see that there are many varied techniques that students come from all different skill levels in this basic drawing class. Most of the students have never taken drawing before. They've never been in a class critique, and so this is probably the first time they've had the opportunity to speak in an online class and to use the vocabulary that they have been reading or listening to from the modules, but actually being able to practice and use those vocabulary naturally in a class critique. So you can see that students are very supportive. At the same time, they are learning how to give the constructive feedback. And I think this is an essential part of being in an art class, is to learn how to give and receive critique. So I have found that VoiceThread has been a tool that I've used for at least a decade in my classes, and it's just been such a great tool to have these discussions and these critiques, and it really has helped my students to grow and get better in drawing, and also to feel more confident to speak and use communication skills in an online class. Okay, well, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'm going to pass it over to Michelle.
Great. I'm going to ask you a question first, Hilary.
Okay.
We've had some interactions, you know, about the way that your students respond to your comments when you speak them, when they hear you speak them, versus when you leave a critique in writing. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I would be more than happy to. I've tried many things over the years. I've tried giving text-based feedback in an email or even on a discussion board, and I'm very surprised by my voice. Humanizes the experiences. It makes it more digestible to hear harder feedback, and I find that students actually go back and revise their work more after they hear my voice. And when they hear it, the same actual comment, I've done the same thing through text, people think that possibly I'm not a kind person, I'm not there to help them, I'm criticizing them. And even what's even more surprising, since I teach these classes online and on campus, students feel like they know me before they see me. If they've taken my online class and then they take it on campus, they feel like they know me, and they say, I've heard your voice before, and I want to take your class on campus. I know that you're here to support me versus criticize me. So our voices make a huge difference to make those connections online, and we need more of that when we're moving online.
Hear, hear. Thank you. Thank you. That's so important. Yeah, it's one of, I gravitated towards using VoiceThread when I was teaching art history full time, and I was teaching art history online. And I was doing it at the time in Blackboard with absolutely no images. It was horrible. And this was way back in the day, like before even Google search was available. I mean, just to give you some context. And when I saw VoiceThread, the whole world lit up for me, because I looked at it and I saw an environment that was like the classroom, in the sense that the image was at the center. And in a discussion, it's not like that, right? Even if you put an image in a prompt in a discussion, students aren't looking at it, they're not engaging with the image as they're responding. So that was the thing that really guided me towards it. But like Hilary, I also saw many different types of outcomes of using it, that like the students felt more connected to me. They felt more connected to the class. That sense of belonging is a really big deal, especially when you're teaching students from diverse populations, vulnerable populations, our Black students, our Latinx students, our LGBTQ students who often feel so excluded. So just something to keep in mind. That's kind of a separate session, but I don't think we can do this one without it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and share a little bit about how I'm using VoiceThread. I teach at a community college in California. Like Hilary, most of my students are non-discipline majors, so they're non-photo or art majors. It's an 8-week class that I teach, so it's a late start. That's what it's called. It starts in the midpoint of the semester, and it is in Canvas. There's 2 major threads in my course that I just want to point out. There's the development of the photographic processes, and I want students need to know about those. And so there's a lot of key terms, kind of like the facts that I need to assess. And then there's more of a subtext that the students explore, that it relates to photography's power to shape how we view the world and our own relationship within it. So that's the place where I use VoiceThread. So I just wanted that context to be there. In my class, I have several different types of assignments, and for the most part, there are quizzes. Most modules, students complete 1 quiz about those facts, right? The processes, the key terms, key figures, those kinds of things. And then the other part of a module in terms of the assignments that students complete are VoiceThread collaborative image curation activities and Canvas discussions. And the image curation activities incorporate choice for students, which is a really big motivating factor for students when they actually can make choices about what it is that they're going to learn about. It helps them to develop their speaking skills. I see significant improvement, and I've seen data from my student surveys that they also identify that they improve with their speaking over time. Lots of anxiety at the start of the semester, so it's really important to keep things low stakes and build that trust with your students. And those image curation activities also help them make real-world connections. The Canvas discussions, and again, these go together, and I'm going to explain how they go together. They help students to develop those writing skills that are also so important, and they foster student-to-student interactions and critical thinking and metacognition. And it's those assignments together that help students to actively construct knowledge in the course, which is a very different way of teaching, primarily lecture-based classes in the classroom where we're delivering content to the students. So the students are actively involved in the construction of knowledge, and it also helps to develop community because the students are listening to each other and looking at what they've shared and responding to some of the ideas that they've contributed to the course. These assignments are scaffolded, and that means that they build off of each other. That's what that means. Scaffolding is an important part of supporting student learning. It helps students to not feel overwhelmed. You kind of give them tasks in chunks so that they build on it. And the way this works is, let's say, for example, in Module 1, the students would have an image curation assignment. They'd have pages in Canvas, which has all the content, right? The writing that they have to read and the videos that they need to watch. And then there's a quiz. And then in the next module, they would have another image curation assignment. They would have more content pages. They'd have what's called a review and reflect assignment, and then a Canvas discussion and a quiz. And that review and reflect assignment, they loop back to the previous module and they take a look at that curation, so the collection that the whole class worked on together. And then based upon what they learned from looking at that, they synthesize what they learned and they respond to a prompt in a discussion. And so it works that way. That's how these kind of work together as we go throughout the course. So I hope that visual is a little bit helpful. And I'm now going to actually play a video too. This is about 7 minutes long. Now I use VoiceThread image curation assignments paired with Canvas discussions to give students choices in their learning and make real-world connections. The example I'm going to show is going to show Module 3 and Module 4. So let's go into Module 3, and this is just a part of Module 3. Towards the end of the module, the students are given an assignment to curate a carte de visite collection. This is a VoiceThread curation assignment. I'm going to click there and open the assignment up. The assignment page includes the due date, a little bit of information about how carte de visites relate to a current module, the objective for the assignment, and the instructions. So here they are instructed to select a carte de visite, which is a type of old photograph that has not already been added to the VoiceThread by another student. And to do that, they're going to go out to the Getty Museum photography collection page. I have a video here, a 3-minute video that walks them through what they're supposed to do so they can see a visual of it. And it instructs them how to download, to locate an image and download it to their computer. And then they're going to upload the carte de visite image or the file into the VoiceThread and leave one voice or video comment that includes the following things. So I've got specific criteria here for them to include in their comment. This step is for anyone who needs extra help uploading the image from a computer. The students at this point have already done this 2 or 3 times, so this is a little bit redundant, but it is here just to support students who might need it. And then down here are the steps to upload the image into the VoiceThread if they're using their phone. There's a wonderful free VoiceThread mobile app that students have access to, and so for students who rely on that phone for the course, they can simply follow these steps and it works the same way. And then at the bottom we have the grading rubric. So what the students would do now is simply click the button at the bottom, and then the VoiceThread would open and they'd follow the instructions to upload their file. I'm going to take you back out into modules and show you how this works in the following module. So again, that was Module 3. They add their image in this assignment here, and then when we get into Module 4, one of the first things they do is the review and reflect assignment. So I'll click there. Again, similar design to the page. We have the instructions. Their instructions are to review 15 slides and comments in the Our Carte de Visite collection VoiceThread. And as they view and listen, keep the following questions in mind. Take notes in response to the questions. In your notes, write down the names of your peers whose image and comment resonated with you. You will mention their names and discuss their images in the discussion. So one of the questions is, who are the subjects in the carte de visites? Theorize about why these individuals may have wanted their likeness distributed through carte de visites. And again, we have the instructions from a computer and the instructions from a mobile device. So I'm going to click here. This is exactly what the students would do. And they're taken to the first image in the VoiceThread. To view all of the images, they are prompted in the instructions to click on the postcard icon in the lower right corner. And then you can see a view of all the images that the students have uploaded. So their instruction is to select 15 of them, again, keeping those prompts in mind. And when they open an image, they simply click on this icon to listen to the student comment. And this is my response here. Let's take a listen.
This particular album in silver print is called Sarah Bernhardt as the Empress Theodora in Sardou's Theodora. The artist is Nidar, also known as Gaspard Felix Ternachin. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. The negative was created in 1884 in Paris, France. It was printed and mounted in about 1889. Sarah Bernhardt is a French stage actress who starred in many popular plays in the late 19th, early 20th century. She also played some male roles like that of Shakespeare's Hamlet. She toured around the world and was one of the first prominent actresses to make sound recordings and act in motion pictures. I like that this particular picture showed more emotion and action than any other of the pictures I viewed in this particular time period.
Hi there, thanks for sharing this very cool carte de visite. I wanted to point out that the photographer you noted, Nadar, is the photographer that you learn about in Module 4, where you're learning about the Impressionists, those artists those painters who are really creating upheaval in Paris in the 1870s. And it was Nadar who hosted that first exhibition of their paintings in Paris, because they had nowhere else to show them because everyone thought their work was so atrocious. Very cool image, and it's really neat to see the background, the elaborate background in his studio. Thanks for sharing. Okay, I'm going to go back over to Canvas and go back to that modules area one more time. So again, module 4 is where the review and reflect assignment is, and then following that is their social influencers discussion. So this is a Canvas discussion. And if we open this up, you'll see their assignment here, or their objective is to critically evaluate the relationship between carte de visites and current day uses of social media. So I remind them before they participate here, they need to complete the review and reflect assignment. Using your notes from that assignment, write a post that is 200 to 300 words that responds to the prompt below. So the prompt is, in what ways are 19th century carte de visites similar to today's use of social media? In your discussion, cite at least 2 carte de visites shared in the collection and at least one specific example from social media to support your position. View the rubric for the assignment to be sure you understand the criteria I will use to grade your responses. When you're ready to make your initial response, type your response in the reply field below these instructions. Your initial response is due by Thursday at 11:59, and then they have instructions for their replies as well. And then the assignment, the discussion flows down below just like any other Canvas discussion. And that's how I use VoiceThread curation assignments with Canvas discussions to give students choice and encourage them to make real-world connections.
Oh, oops, I'm muted, sorry.
Hey guys, in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a fun Bitmoji
What did I
scene
do
that you can
here?
use in your.
Okay, sorry about that, I was muted. I was just gonna say that we have in our slides at the bottom here, as well as on our resource site, I'm gonna go back over there and navigate over to the page called Teaching Demos. Hilary and I have shared some goodies here. So here you'll find our slides if you haven't found them already. The videos that we just showed are down below. And this link here will take you out to the assignment instructions from all of those assignments that I just walked you through in Canvas. I know sometimes seeing how it's set up can be really helpful. And you can also click and see my video tutorials if that's helpful as well. I embedded a rubric here for the image curation. I'm sorry, for the, what assignment is that for? Yeah, the image curation. And so actually that's for the discussion. So if you have any questions, do certainly let us know, but hopefully those resources will be helpful to you. And in addition to that, I just had a couple of things to share. In my class, I showed you one image curation VoiceThread, but there are other ones that I do. I have an icebreaker at the start of the course where I simply have students upload their favorite photograph. It should say your favorite photograph, not photography, sorry. And since I have it set up to allow students to add images directly to the VoiceThread, the setup process for me is super simple. I have a simple title slide and that's it. So it's the instructions that are really important so students know what they're supposed to do, how to do it, and the criteria that I'm looking for. We also have a curated daguerreotype collection, and all of those at the top feed into a Canvas discussion as I just explained. And then there's 3 others that I do that are not linked to a Canvas discussion. All my students create a camera Obscura. They have multiple ways they can do it, including making one out of a Pringles can, which is the most popular. and they share a picture of their camera obscura and leave a comment reflecting on the process and what it was like for them. And then they create a motion picture, motion in quotes, either a flip book or a thaumatrope, which are two early types of motion pictures that build off of still photography. And we have one called Your Family Archive, where the assignment is to reach out and connect with family members and go on a search to find the oldest family photograph that they can find. And they share that, and we do that one towards the end after we have really kind of connected and bonded as a community. And that's really exciting to see. And it also acknowledges differences that students bring to the classroom, and it makes them understand that they are valued and that those differences are an asset in the course. And I think that's it from me. So I'm going to stop sharing, and we have some time for questions. So I'm going to look over at our chat. So Carolyn is saying, I find that VoiceThread is wonderful for one-to-one, but not so great for many-to-many. Any suggestions? So Carolyn, I've used VoiceThread for a really, really long time. And I've done it in lots of different ways. And I agree that when you have voice, if you have like 40 students in each class and you have multiple classes, if you have that many to like listen to and assess every week, for me, it would be way too much. So I try to come up with strategies to limit it a little bit and make the assessment super simple. And that's why I love these image curation assignments, because it's very, very simple. It's like you upload an image and there's certain criteria that you have to include, and they get points. So it's not really heavy in terms of the grading. Something else that can be helpful is to have students select from a series of slides. If you're thinking about things you want students to discuss. I used to do this in my art history classes where I'd have like 8 slides and I'd say pick 2 questions and respond to them. So that way they're kind of broken up across the slides and there isn't as much redundancy. And I've also had students work in groups, but you don't need to do it every week. That can be staggered. You can use discussions and then VoiceThread or something of that sort. Or you could do something like a fishbowl activity where one week you have certain students who are in the fishbowl, so they have to respond to certain prompts in VoiceThread, and the rest are looking, and then they flip. So that's another idea to play with in VoiceThread. But it definitely, you know, teaching is a lot of work. It takes a lot of practice and trying new things. Let's see here. So Hilary, there's a, okay, you responded to Barbara's question. Thank you. And do students create photos with the camera obscura? No, I don't have students actually create photos. Since it's a history of photography course, we want them to really be knowledgeable about the different processes. And so reading about a camera obscura is fine and dandy, but once students actually make one and see that it is a phenomenon that still works in the world, just like it did back in ancient times, it's pretty cool. So I do have students who hold up their phone and take pictures of what they see through their camera obscura. So that's kind of fun. I would like to see if there's anyone who would like to unmute and ask a question, because I think we're getting to the bottom of the questions in the chat. If you'd like to do that, here's what you can do. Click on the participant button at the bottom of Zoom and then select raise hand, and I will call on you and you can ask a question. So Robin Mitchell, you have your hand up. What's your question?
How do we connect the VoiceThread to Canvas? Both my schools, I teach at Pasadena City College and Santa Monica College, are registered, but how do you connect it?
So if your institution has a site license and the integration between Canvas and VoiceThread is complete, which it sounds like you're in that spot, it's a matter of going into creating an assignment, and then you select external tool as the type of assignment you're setting up, and you have to choose VoiceThread from the drop down. Now, beyond that, there are different types of assignments that you can set up in VoiceThread, and VoiceThread is really the go-to resource to look at those, how to do it. And they have some great step-by-step tutorials on their site that we do have also linked on the resource site.
Wonderful, thank you.
You're very welcome. Does anyone else have any ideas to share about how you're using VoiceThread? or how you might use it. Again, I invite you to click on participants and then select raise hand if you'd like to share in voice. Okay, I see a couple hands up. Andrea, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself?
Hi there.
Hi.
So my question is, I'm really happy to learn about this VoiceThread, and I'm curious to know if you or Hilary have ever used Google Docs or what was the other one? If you've ever used Google Docs as a format for a collaborative group discussion. And if you have, what do you see as being the advantages of VoiceThread over Google Docs?
Well, I've tried Google Docs and a few other tools. I think there's something, at least for studio arts, there's something about talking and pointing things out at the same time that I think is a crucial part of the connection between visual and verbal.
Right.
Okay, so when I'm talking, I'm pointing something out. I know I do that all the time when I'm walking around the classroom, and then the students are doing the same thing. And so it's very like intuitive and natural. And so I think with the Google Docs, I haven't really tried anything with voice, but I do know that people can circle and they can write, but it's very delayed and doesn't have that sort of immediacy feeling of doodling and talking at the same time. So for me, that's really important.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that immediacy and connectivity that both you, that both of you have pointed out. Yeah. Michelle, what about you? Any thoughts?
I have a question. Are you talking about Google Docs or Google Slides?
Google Docs, shared docs.
Okay, so I've used Google Docs for lots of stuff, but not in the way that you've explained it. In my eyes, I see Google Docs as being most beneficial for when if you had students who are trying to collaborate to write something together. I think that would be really useful, but in terms of a discussion, I think that would be very unwieldy.
Okay. Specifically, what I was thinking about was a sort of creating a mock exhibition where students can choose artworks of their own, choosing, and put them together in a collaborative environment based on certain protocol and prompts, where we can collectively look at the group of images and discuss them within a guided learning format. So, and I was thinking about using Google Docs to do that, but now having learned about VoiceThread, I thought perhaps maybe that would be more useful.
So I have done that within the last 10 years. I've had students create an art gallery show, and they actually put the images themselves. So they curate themselves, they're putting their own images. And I've also had students create their own portfolios too. And so I think it can be used in many creative ways other than just a critique. So if you have that idea, I can imagine that can definitely be a collaborative way of students putting things together and also talking and reflecting about each other's work.
Right. Great. Okay, thank you.
Great question. So next we have Pamela and then Lisa. Pamela, would you like to go ahead and unmute?
Yes. Oops. Sorry about that. I'm in a district that does not have the license, and I was wondering if a workaround might be to use the rich content editor. I know how to do the record a voice when using the rich content editor. So I was wondering if that might work.
So your question, just to be sure I understood, and I'm sorry, I was looking at the chat, so my sincere apologies if I got it wrong, but Lisa, are you asking about the option of using voice in Canvas instead of a VoiceThread? Is that what you're asking?
Correct, because my district does not have the license for VoiceThread. So I was thinking of a workaround in Canvas, correct? For the reply?
Sure, yeah.
Or even for the assignment, yeah.
Yeah. Hilary, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I would be happy to do that. I have tried that, but I think there's a difference between the critique wall that we're used to on campus, where everyone's in a circle and they're kind of surrounding near each other, than a long scrolling discussion board, which is very different than we experience in the art classroom. So that's part of it. I've also had a lot of difficulties using the video tools, and some of my students have too, on the Canvas discussion board, so it hasn't been so intuitive. You can't doodle and circle as you're talking. So it's not exactly the same. And I'm just so connected to the on-campus experience that I feel like it's so close to it using VoiceThread. There is a workaround, and I want to say, before we had a site license at my school, I did have an instructor license for many years when we had etudes, and I did use that as a workaround. So, so they have department licenses, instructor licenses, but the actual site license for your campus is so much better because it's integrated and there's all grading and everything. So that's something, but there is a workaround. And like I said, you can get an instructor license.
Okay, and then could you also just comment, if I since we don't have the license, how to get all of the curated pictures into one view in Canvas? If we're not using VoiceThread, can we do that? When all the students had their work shown? Oh, okay.
You do mean in my video when I showed all the pictures?
Yeah, the student artwork.
So that was actually on VoiceThread. So
okay.
VoiceThread, there's a kind of a button postcard view where you can see all the images. It's just a way to click, and you can also see them as a slideshow. So it's very easy. When you have a folder, you can just upload them. They all upload in within a few seconds. Or students can also put their artwork in there instead of the discussion board, and that's another way to use VoiceThread, which is something that is a time saver for sure.
Right. Thank you so much.
I have one more suggestion, Pamela. If you use Google Slides, you could put a student use each slide for a student work. So they could be curated onto the Google Slides. You could also make that collaborative. So like maybe you put the student name at the top of the slide and you give them the link to the slides and say, find the slide with your name on it and put your image on it. And then what you could do is just embed those slides in Canvas. So you could click through them. It wouldn't be all on one page, but you could click through them. So
right, like a slideshow. Okay, great. Yeah,
that's another idea. So we have about 4 more minutes. I'd like to invite Lisa to share.
Okay, hi. Thanks for doing this. I actually have a few things, sorry, that might go even for Pamela workarounds, because I'm teaching synchronously too. And so in the synchronous, if you're in a discussion, you can annotate right in Zoom too. So there's tools there. So you could always video that if you were asynchronous, I suppose, for Pamela. Do a screen video and you would be able to critique and do it right in sort of loading all that up together. Yeah, so I usually try to run through with my class and do something like that where they're taking turns critiquing each other. I also invite them to comment in the discussion as well, like before when people are posting. So same idea as you guys, to sort of cover some bases. And I have had them do where they'll create their own videos. Before I started learning like for VoiceThread, but you can do it right in VoiceThread where for art history where they're making a presentation. So I have them create a presentation, like say they're doing it on an artist, and they'll either film, like you can just use Screencast-O-Matic, even the free version, and have them film their desktop, or obviously in VoiceThread they can use other ways, but there's other tools out there you can do if you don't have the license for VoiceThread. So
And on that note, Lisa, thank you for sharing that, because there certainly are lots of ways that we can support our unique pedagogical needs for the visual arts. I did want to just close on an invitation for those of you who are faculty or staff. If you're employed at a California community college, we at CVC OEI, the group that I work with, we are starting a new visual arts faculty community. It will be in the form of a Canvas course. And it's not created yet, but I have a sign-up form, and I just put the link in the chat. It's the third link up right now. It says, if you are a CA community college instructor, please feel free to sign up by using that form. And if you sign up, then we'll invite you to join the community once it's created. And I also wanted to mention that, is it someone, I'm sorry, Marguerite has added a link to a Facebook group that is public that anyone can join. And it's a Facebook group for teaching, is it for teaching art history, I believe, yes? So that link is in there as well if you want to check that out if you're a Facebook user and if that would be useful to you. Thank you everyone for being here. We're at 2 o'clock. Again, our resource site is where you will find all kinds of goodies, including our slides and the archive. The archive will also be on the @ONE YouTube channel within a week. And we wish all of you a successful upcoming term. Hang in there. We should lean on each other because, as you just saw, there are so many great ideas to be shared and learned from when we come together.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.